Well, when we bought the business back from my dad back in 2002, we bought at a time when we were sort of in decline. Actually, we had been making store fixtures for years, and we had lost probably within the first year of when we bought it back, we had lost about 60 to 70% of our business. But in the meantime, we were actually accumulating debt. We were going into the hole every day as we were trying to fix that business before we came to the realization that you can't fix this, we've got to change. Kind of like a spiral, a downward spiral, where we really didn't know what the next step was going to be. And in that period, we had insurance companies that were trying to non-renew us for insurance. We had banks that were calling notes because they didn't like the direction and the trajectory of our business either. And so we had all these giants that were kind of teamed up against us to try and basically stop us as a business.
And then during the tough times, I would say, he'd come home and he'd tell me something that happened, and I would say, is this the silver bullet? Is this the one that's going to get us? No, no, no. We just got to work through it. So I kind of just sit back and do my thing and let him figure it out.
I think as a guy, we want to be the provider. We want to be the security. We want to be the strength for our families. And when you're going through a period like this, for us, everything in our entire life was tied, the financial security and our future was tied to this business. If it failed, we were going to have to file bankruptcy. We would personally file bankruptcy. We would probably lose our house. I mean, all of the negatives that you can possibly think of would have been the result had the business failed. It was definitely before I had found Christ. I was going through that on my own. I mean, I had Amy, and without her, we wouldn't have been able to get through it. But ultimately, as a man, you still see that responsibility as yours. And so, I saw that as failure and inadequacy. And each time I was trying to do and provide for the family through this business, it was unsuccessful. And so there was just failure after failure after failure, and that was the difficulty of this. And it did carry over, into our family life. And if it hadn't been for Amy, we would not have survived that, because she was picking up the slack where I was struggling with the business, and she was keeping the family together. And I don't know what we would have done without that.
It's scary when you've got children, you want to keep their life normal every day. It's hard to leave everything at work, but still it's just the stress of basically we would lose everything. And not that we need a lot, but what we have is our home, and to lose that is just, I think that would be really hard. I know a lot of people are going through it, and I think it'd be very hard to do.
I guess it was probably about 5-6 years ago when we first started coming to Oak Ridge, and I had grown up a Catholic, so I really didn't understand a relationship with Christ. I knew sort of the religion of it, but I didn't understand anything about the relationship. But what I found was that salvation is a whole different thing, and it's about the relationship and giving your life to Christ. And it took me a few months to understand that after coming to Oak Ridge, and I think the hardest thing for me was the surrender and trying to come to terms with what that really meant. And ultimately, I realized that it wasn't a battle between me and Christ in terms of surrendering to Him. It was a battle between me and myself in terms of giving up myself and letting God take the lead. And I think that part of it, that was the biggest stumbling block for me in coming to Christ. And then, since that, now that I look at all of the struggles that we've had over the last 5-6 years since I've come to Christ, and continue to have. I mean, let's face it, this is a difficult time for all of us, and I know there's a lot of folks facing financial struggles right now, but so now it's Amy and I together, and we have God as our partner too, and I think the reality of that is that we worry less about the ultimate end, the ultimate response, so we can deal with the day-to-day things. We know that salvation is ours down the road. Everything between now and then is just sort of the dry run for what that's going to be down the road.
I remember we talked a lot. At the end of the day, it's going to be him and me, and our backs may be against the wall, but we're not going to be alone, and we'll just keep at it. I mean, it's all you can do. I think it's just praying for the grace to get through it, and to be open to possibilities. I mean, sometimes the road that you're on, you can't see the other possibilities that are out there. You have to have your eyes open for them. For me, I have to kind of look at it. What is this defeat going to look like? I mean, how ugly is it going to be? What is our plan? At the end of the day, we're going to all be together. Where are we going to be? What will that look like? I just have to face it and look at it, and then it isn't so frightening to me after that.
I think you have to put your thoughts of defeat into perspective, and for me, there was a period when we first started coming to Oak Ridge, and where the kids made a conscious decision to give their lives to Christ, and to me, it was about the same time that I had also given my life to Christ, and so together I knew that in the end, at the very end, that Amy and I and the kids were going to be, we were going to be in heaven forever. And ultimately, that was the end. And then, so in the meantime, if we're driving down the road and that's where we're going, everything between now and then is a distraction. And those negative things, if you get focused too much on the negatives, and there are negatives, and it doesn't mean they're not real, and it doesn't mean the consequences aren't painful and all of that, but they can distract you from the ultimate goal. If you're driving to eternity and eternity with your family in heaven with Christ, and you get too sidetracked by those negatives, then you lose track, and it's like when you're driving down the road and you see something off the side of the road and you look at it and you focus on it, and next thing you know, you're drifting that way, you're drifting off of the path. I think if you can focus on that end a little bit more, and then sometimes it helps put those real negatives into perspective, and you can work your way through them.